What's up, Kings fans? We're here, we're drinking beers, and we're talking about your Sacramento Kings. Calvin, what kind of beer are we drinking today?
Today we are drinking the Miso Honey, see what they did there? Blonde Ale, refreshing, brewed with honey, of course, from Belching Beaver Brewing Company out of Oceanside, California. You guys are welcome for the free plug. Add us if you'd like to sponsor the show.
As many of you guys know, Calvin and I love beer, so we figured we might shout out, and maybe you guys want to send us some free beer. That would be awesome.
We would love it.
Anyways, we're going to jump right into the show here today. Today's subject is Marvin Bagley, and on that subject, we are actually giving away an autographed Marvin Bagley Basketball. If you do want to get entered in this sweepstakes, there are a few things that you need to do. Number one, you need to subscribe to this channel. You have to like this video and watch it to the end, where we will let you know what to comment down below to enter yourself into the contest. All right, Calvin, so we're jumping into the Marvin Bagley situation. Do you want to kind of explain to everyone what's been happening recently? I know it's a lot.
It's always an up and down situation when we're talking about Marvin Bagley, right? If you are active on social media and you're a Kings fan, chances are you've already seen a lot of this, but Marvin recently liked a tweet that said, quote, "Man, we got to get this guy out of Sacramento." He then received a lot of backlash from Kings fans. Hard to make Kings fans angry, I will say. We're the team that has a 15-year drought. Making the playoffs, we still sell out games. Yet he's somehow managed to do it. And he then, as he received all that backlash, he decided he was going to remove any likeness or affiliation on his social media to Sacramento and the Kings. So that has a lot of people speculating, is this the final straw? What's Monte McNair going to do with him now? Is he on his way out of Sacramento?
Yeah, and it's a tough, complicated situation. He hasn't been healthy. It seems like he could potentially be traded every deadline, and then he ends up getting injured, and no one wants to trade for an injured Marvin Bagley. We saw the drama with his dad earlier this year, and actually De'Aaron Fox's dad got a little bit involved in that one too. So, man, it's crazy. I feel like we end up talking about Marvin Bagley all the time.
And unfortunately, it's usually not about his play on the court,
yes.
So, which is a bad sign if you're a basketball player generally.
Yes. So Marvin, he played about 43 games this season. He's been pretty consistent, 14 points, 7 rebounds, shoot 50% from the field. I feel like us Kings fans know what to expect from Marvin Bagley at this point, if he's available, right? If he's available. So because of all this kind of swirling of news and craziness, there's been a lot of rumors and trade speculation about Marvin. I know I've looked at a couple different mock trades of some teams that are interested in Marvin Bagley. But it is a complicated situation because he's still on his rookie deal. He's making $11 million next year. And then he's a restricted free agent. So, Calvin, what do you think is going to end up happening in this situation?
It's hard to say. I mean, my gut at the moment says that he's not going to be a Sacramento King next season. I have thought that in the past, though, as well, and it didn't work out, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. And this is a really difficult decision for Monte McNair to make for a lot of reasons. This is something that Monte McNair inherited. He wasn't the guy that picked Marvin Bagley. There's a lot of things that Marvin, in his career, in his ups and downs, he's had no control over. It's really got to be frustrating for him to see the success that everybody else in that draft class is having right now. DeAndre Ayton is in the finals. Trae Young might be in the finals. Luka Doncic is everybody's pick for MVP all of a sudden. It's a really, really high-performing draft class, and he has underperformed for a guy that was picked number 2. On the flip side of that, though, the thing that makes this so tough is that when he does play, it's not all bad. You mentioned his numbers, 14 points, 7 rebounds for his career. That's for a guy who's missed 108 games out of a possible 226. and he's never played more than 26 minutes a game in his career. So if you're an analytics guy, like we know Monte McNair is and all his guys in the front office, his numbers look even better. His per 36-minute averages are 20.5 points and 10.6 rebounds. I think I would take that from my starting power forward most seasons. Those are Chris Webber type numbers if we're talking about Kings power forwards.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, he had the third worst defensive rating for any player on the Kings who played at least 30 games this season. Defense is something we always talk about with the Kings that they desperately need. And then you got all this off-the-court stuff where he just doesn't seem like he's fully engaged, whether he likes the coach, doesn't like the coach, his dad doesn't like the coach. There's all this stuff that is extra stuff that doesn't, help his play on the court. So he's put himself in a bad situation recently with this social media stuff. And, you mentioned he makes $11 million next year. That's a big price tag. It's a tough situation.
And as you mentioned, Monty and all those guys, Wes Wilcox in the front office, they're all analytic guys. So you look at a lot of those numbers, and you're happy with him as far as the analytics go. But Luke Walton's the coach. Luke Walton doesn't seem to me like an analytics guy. He seems like an old school, earn your minutes. Marvin, you're probably in your second year still, according to Luke Walton. Getting game time and all that. So
is he going to be a King next year?
I honestly don't think so. But I also didn't think Luke Walton was going to be the head coach of the Kings next year either.
Makes two of us.
And so I feel like one of them has to go. And it seems like the Kings are committed more to Luke Walton than they are to Marvin Bagley.
Yeah, and there's the contract situation is something that's going to play into this also, right? He's got a pretty big cap hold coming to him if he's to remain in Sacramento.
Yep. And also, if you're Monte McNair and you could potentially be losing Richaun Holmes this offseason, do you want to trade your other big man too?
Very good point.
And then you're trying to fill two positions.
And then the other question on top of that is, what are you actually going to get if you try to trade him? We all know now that he was made available at the trade deadline, and according to most reports, the best deal that they could have gotten back was a couple second-round picks for him.
Yeah.
So is that worth it right now? Monte McNair's been big on financial flexibility. So, making a move now to get him his $11 million off the books and not have to pay him anymore after that is something that might be enticing to them. I don't know. To be honest, I think the best deal that they could make with him would be packaging him with the number 9 pick. If they're trying to get somebody who's a win-now type player or a guy who's going to come in and greatly help the team right away, I don't think they can just trade Marvin Bagley by himself and get something like that in return.
Yeah. And you could put a guy like Buddy Hield in there if you need to match salaries.
That's true.
All right. So I have looked at a few mock trades. One of them that I personally liked was to the Miami Heat. It was sending Marvin Bagley in exchange for Andre Iguodala, who I know many Kings fans aren't a big fan of after he agreed to a deal and then went to the Warriors instead. But he's got a very, very team-friendly contract. I think it's a $15 million team option this year, and then he's expiring next year. It was Andre Iguodala and Precious Achiuwa for Marvin Bagley. And I feel like Precious could come in and play that 4 pretty easily, and Iguodala would bring invaluable leadership skills and a guy that has a Finals MVP award. Have the Kings ever had a guy who won Finals MVP on the roster?
Not that I can think of.
So that's a pretty big move there. Have you seen any deals that you really like?
I haven't really seen too many deals. It's hard to really believe at this point in the season what is realistic or if any of these proposals are how serious they really are, especially when you think about the fact that they tried to get rid of him at the trade deadline and there wasn't really a lot of value out there for him. There's no way that he's done anything since then to improve that value. Personally, I think for a Kings fan, that would be a great deal for the Miami trade that you just talked about. I think Miami would be losing that trade if they were to pull the trigger on that one personally. Precious didn't have, mind-boggling numbers last year, but I think he's a really solid talent. He's very athletic, and he is a very good interior defender. And he's a guy that doesn't have a lot of injury problems or past as well. So I think the Kings would totally win that trade.
The Heat definitely have to do something, right? They were in the finals a year ago. This year they lose in the first round. The only way I see the Heat doing this deal is if they are clearing some cap space to sign another player, and they have a high upside number 2 pick in Marvin Bagley that they're also kind of bringing in. So I could see that.
Maybe.
I honestly think that would be a great situation for Marvin Bagley. We already know he has a place in Florida where he trains, and Pat Riley is...
It's a good music scene down there.
Good music scene down there. Marvin, we've seen some of his rap videos and all that. But Pat Riley could do wonders for Marvin Bagley if he can stay healthy, right? If he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I know you had mentioned some cap numbers, so we can kind of break those down here. The Kings already exercised their team option this next year for $11 million for Marvin Bagley. It is the last year of his rookie scale or rookie deal, and then he becomes a restricted free agent. However, he's only a restricted free agent if you offer the qualifying offer, $14 million. And the cap hold that comes with that qualifying offer is $28 million, which is a big number.
Yeah.
And, I know it's still early, and the Kings aren't a great destination for players, but if you look at the 2022 free agent class, it is stacked. I'm talking about Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook, John Wall, Kevin Durant. Like, you name a superstar, he's pretty much a free agent in 2022.
Finals MVPs in that list.
Yeah, exactly. So
multiple.
If you're the Kings, are you willing to offer this guy $14 million just so that you have the option to match a contract, but you lock up $28 million in cap, so you are basically the first 5 to 10 days of free agency, you're strapped and you can't offer anybody a deal?
Yeah, no. I think the answer is pretty easy for that one. And I think Monty McNair and his group are probably going to follow suit. If they practice what they preach when it comes to finance, keeping things open, keeping things available, that just seems like a move that wouldn't make sense for them.
You think they're in a rush to trade him this year?
I think the situation has gotten so bad just with everything that's going on away from the court, and the fact that they've tried to trade him already and they haven't found what they've wanted. At this point, it's just like, we need to move on. He needs to move on. The Kings need to move on. They've got to start. We talk all the time about culture and building a winning program and a culture within the organization, and this stuff is not part of that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's definitely not part of that. It'll be interesting to see what the Kings end up doing here. It's very sad, actually. You look at Marvin Bagley. He's one of the highest drafted players in Kings history.
He is.
And with that obviously comes a lot of responsibility, and many Kings fans have been very underwhelmed, by him. I think we're going to see a sad end to this story. So,
but I'm still rooting for the guy. Rooting for the guy.
Yes, I am still rooting for him too. And on that topic, I'm gonna go off on a little tangent here. I know we had talked about some free agents, and I guess we're talking about a guy that could be an ex-King. So I want to talk about another ex-King who just got eliminated a couple days ago from the NBA playoffs, Demarcus Cousins.
I'm not so high on Demarcus Cousins anymore. I think a reunion with Sacramento would not be a smart move. It's really unfortunate what has happened to DeMarcus with his injuries over the course of his career. He was such a dominant force for a long time. He had some really great seasons in Sacramento, but he is not the guy that he used to be. And I know you're not maybe bringing him back in to be that same type of player, but I don't see how much he really helps the Kings if he comes back. If you look at his numbers this year with the Clippers, 7 points a game, 4.5 rebounds. Didn't play a ton of minutes. It's only about 12 minutes a game, but he just physically doesn't have what he used to have. If you look at defensively, for his entire career before his ACL injury, he averaged well over a block and a steal a game. Close to 2 steals and close to 2 blocks per game in some years. Since that ACL injury, hasn't even come close to those numbers. He can't cover the floor the same way he used to. He can't challenge shots the same way he used to. He's definitely not the scorer that he used to be. He's really a shell of himself, I think. So I'm not high on that move for sure.
Well, watching the last Clippers game, we did see some familiar Demarcus Cousins getting into it with Chris Paul at the end of the game. It's funny, right?
And we just talked about this with Marvin Bagley.
Yeah.
You want to bring in another guy who's going to have the same type of effect?
Well, hold on. Let me explain here. But yeah, it was interesting seeing him, right? He's on the Clippers. We know how much beef DeMarcus has had with the Clippers over the last 10 years, and it was with Chris Paul, right? So it's kind of flipped, right? He's a Clipper now. Chris Paul's not a Clipper. They get into it still. But, the reason that I really bring this up is DeMarcus Cousins loves Sacramento. He's said that over and over, that he just loves the city of Sacramento. You look at all the guys that he had issues with in Sacramento, and they're all gone now. There's no more Vlade Divac. He's the one that traded Boogie. Grant Napier's gone. I know he was a big... I think DeMarcus actually got Grant Napier fired last year, so he's probably happy about that. And then you look at... I know you went over the numbers, but DeMarcus is on a vet minimum salary this year. He's only making $300,000. And rewind back to last offseason, who was the guy that Monty McNair was so ecstatic about signing?
Hassan Whiteside.
Hassan Whiteside. An ex-King, center, signed a 1-year vet minimum deal to return to Sacramento.
Yes.
Because Hassan wasn't happy with how it went the first time.
And how did it work this year?
Very true. However, I don't know. I could see some kind of potential here.
Basically, what it sounds like you're pitching is, and I'm okay with this idea, because DeMarcus is beloved by a lot of Kings fans. It sounds to me like it's a farewell tour. Bring him back to Sacramento. He's going to retire in Sacramento. It's sort of like a Zach Randolph type situation where he's not the type of player that he used to be anymore. You're not going to count on him for a whole lot necessarily, but it would just be fun to see him in a Kings jersey again and maybe retire in Sacramento. And I like that idea. I think a lot of Kings fans would like to see that, but at the same time, you're talking about the franchise that has missed the playoffs for the last 15 years in a row. I think we need to be focused on how we're going to break that streak, and I'm not sure DeMarcus Cousins really makes that any different.
Yeah, I don't see DeMarcus anything more than a backup center at this point. And, unfortunately, his attitude hasn't seemed to have changed that much. But you look at the guy and his resume, his NBA resume, great player. And I feel like the last 5 years for him has been a huge learning lesson. He's seen the highs, he's seen the lows, he's been all over the place. He's bounced around to some really successful teams where he's learned how to win. I think he's been in the playoffs or in the finals like 3 out of the last 4 years.
Mostly on the sideline.
Mostly on the sideline, but still, you're involved, you're around those players, you're developing that stuff. So if I were the Kings, I would be potentially open to it, just based on the fact that DeMarcus Cousins could have an impact on some of the young players in Sacramento and showing them that it can get better, right?
this team is close. They are close to being a playoff team. Maybe not a title contending team. They still have a long way to go for that. But they're starting to build towards that with some of these guys like De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton. And I think that is going to be the direction that they need to focus on.
Well, we want to thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Royal Rebounds podcast. Calvin, do you want to let everybody know what they need to comment down below to be entered into the Marvin Bagley basketball sweepstakes?
Yeah, so in order to be qualified to win the Marvin Bagley Autographed Basketball, we would like you to comment in the screen below this video. Very simple. Marvin Bagley's number. That's all we need.
Digits. You could write it out however you want. Put Marvin Bagley's number down below in the comments. Subscribe to our channel. Like this video, and you will be entered in the sweepstakes to win this Marvin Bagley Autographed Basketball. We will be giving the ball away on draft night, July 29th.
That's right. Thanks for watching, you guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next week, and go Kings.
Go Kings.